on the Fields front, I mean, it's hard for me to envision him being here next year at this point, personally. I mean, it's just if you're going to be looking at a new coach, you're going to be looking at a new GM potentially, and he's going to be in the last year of his contract, and you have to say within a year under new coaching, maybe new management, we need to commit to this guy now, and we're still not sure about him unless he just goes off next. That's just a major if you end up with one of those top two picks. Like that is anyone coming into the Bears job would prefer a clean slate to betting on the final year of Justin Fields' rookie contract. And I think that's just logic at this point.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm there with you, right? I think the injury really hurts Justin's chances of kind of convincing, even maybe a next regime, hey, hang on to me, I'm worth it, right? Because the best ability is availability. And if you're not on the field for, again, if this thumb takes longer, because we've seen time and time again where there's an optimistic timeline for an injury and it doesn't work out that way. And I'm not just saying with the Bears, I'm saying league wide in general, right? We've seen it over our lifetimes. So there's a very good chance that rather, like you said, than that 4 or 5 window, which would be ideal, I think, for most Bears fans, we could be looking closer to 8, 9 weeks potentially on that longer end. And now all of a sudden that puts you, past Thanksgiving at this point. So not a lot of football left then down the stretch there to really, like you said, right, kind of solidify a place here, next year. And quite frankly, I'll be honest here, I think Justin Fields needs the change of scenery because we've just seen what this Bears regime has been for the last 2 years and how toxic it's been. And we got some numbers that are going to back that up here in a little bit. But I'm right there with you, man. I don't think he's unfortunately a Bear next year. And the injury timeline certainly puts a damper on anything that could have changed that.
Yeah, like I think to the point about like you think he can go someplace else and maybe hit that reset button and be able to succeed. Like I still believe that if you build an offense for Fields, and when I say this, I have a specific team in mind. I'll tell you at the end here. But like if you build a power run offense with deep shots off play action all over it, and like the Tennessee Titans Ryan Tannehill offense, that is like when Fields came out, I said, I was sitting there thinking, like, what's the floor here? Like, we know he can throw deep accurately. We know he can run. Like, it's got like Ryan Tannehill feels like this guy cannot be worse than Ryan Tannehill. And Tannehill, he really struggled in Miami his first 4 years. Got to Tennessee with a power run game with a King Henry, next to him, and like they were just able to start lighting up scoreboards with that. It's a little limited in what in the playoffs. Once you get to those like gotta win moments, it's not exactly what the upside that you want at the quarterback position. But like you look at the guy who was running that Tannehill offense for a few years, Arthur Smith, the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Like, I think the Falcons make a lot of sense for him and could really do well by him because I do think his ceiling is higher than Tannehill still. But I think that, at the least you can create a Tannehill, Tennessee Titans type offense around him and expect him to do well.
And I think it would be crazy thinking, just quickly about that Atlanta idea here, because you look at what Desmond Ridder has done so far this year with Atlanta. I mean, they've had a pretty strong start to the season. They're not blowing people away by any means in the NFC South, but it's kind of become a 2-horse race, it feels like right now, between them and Tampa to probably take the division ultimately. And they're, like you said, they're doing it with 2 very clear top backs in Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. They're doing it with more Jonnu Smith than Kyle Pitts, which is weird, but that's neither here nor there. And you have a Drake London. Yeah, and you have a Drake London there who, is your lead guy on the outside. I think if they add maybe one weapon in the receiving game, and then to your point, Q, I mean, he's a Georgia boy. He's from the Atlanta area. That feels like it could be a match made in heaven and a good change of scenery for him. And speaking of that, what would potential Justin Fields' trade value be? And it might be too soon, obviously. The injury derails that. He's probably not getting traded anytime in the near future. This is an off-season topic, but too soon evaluations here, Q, for what the trade value is for Justin Fields. Because, mind you, a season ago when the Bears had the number one pick before they traded it and people were yelling from the rooftops for them to take either Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, it was reportedly a first-round pick for Justin Fields at times, whether it was the Jets or some of these other teams. Probably not the same case anymore. What do you think his value realistically is to come this offseason if the Bears do decide to move on?
Yeah, I think you're really most likely looking at like, so the baseline here has to be probably the most recent trade of a QB on a rookie contract that you can find, which is Trey Lance, right? So
Yep.
Trey Lance got a fourth round pick, probably a late fourth because it was Dallas Cowboys. So sitting there saying, I don't think anyone's going to give a first for him. I mean, I think that if he had, continued to play well, that's when you were talking first round territory, potentially to someone who's like, a late first rounder. But at the end of the day, you're talking about a QB who is on 1 year left on his deal. Going to need to be paid in a year. Like you need to make that decision. You need to remember there's no middle tier QB contracts. And that really limits the upside to paying him long term before he's proven anything. So that's just gonna hamper your trade return value. So at that point, I'm thinking like probably mid third to late second. Like obviously where it lands is going to depend on the team that wants him. Like if it is Atlanta, if Atlanta makes the playoffs, late second or maybe like third and a fourth or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You start talking like late third and late fourth. But I think that to hope for a second, I think would be optimistic. To hope for anything in the top 50 might be unrealistic is kind of where my thought process is sitting.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I think the higher end is like a third round pick, like you said, probably mid to late third round pick is probably the best you get back for Fields at this point. And again, it's not even necessarily a talent thing. There might be a team that sees that and says, we absolutely can make him a successful quarterback in the NFL, but they're not going to overpay for a guy that the Bears are probably just going to be trying to get rid of. They can probably play the game and say, hey, we'll give you, a fifth or a fourth. And then maybe if there is that negotiation or other teams get involved, okay, maybe we'll give you a third. But nobody's probably overpaying more than a third for Fields. So I'll have to agree with you there.